Hi everyone, my name is Lynn from Raeda. I'm a coach for writers and I help writers move past any blocks or things that are getting them stuck. And today we have a really cool guest, Kristen Irish. She's a writer and creativity mentor and she's in Chicago, which I think is so cool. Can't wait to find out what's going on in Chicago. First of all, tell us what you're up to in the world. I'm just loving your energy. I've watched a few videos and this is the first time you and I have been face to face, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so, well, as you know, because that's why I'm here, I'm working on a novel,
Yes.
so I'm working on that. But I run an online business. I am a creativity mentor, as you mentioned, and what I do is I really focus on creatives of color, so Black and brown creatives, and really helping them to uncover and unravel from the oppressive conditionings and beliefs that are holding them back, which everybody has.
Yes.
Everybody has a bunch of oppressive conditionings and beliefs. And so unraveling from those so that they can create a paradigm shift in their creative work as well as in their lives and other areas of their lives. So yeah, so that's what I do, and then in that also bringing my creativity into it. So I do have a YouTube channel, for example, and I make videos.
Yes.
I actually just posted one like 30 minutes ago.
Awesome.
So I do make videos and just trying to do like a variety of different things.
Cool.
Just to kind of, you know, get the message out there and help people and inspire people and, you know, create change. I'm all about creating change in this world. This world needs change.
Yes, 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 yes. I want to say something about your president there so badly, but
not my presidents.
Yeah.
Other people's presidents.
Yes, there you go.
President,
sorry.
That's how I feel. So
the United States of America.
I'm sure we're on the same page on that one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Should we go there? Maybe not.
Hot Mess USA. Hey, I'm a fairly political person. I mean, I talk about like different social things and some political things too. So,
okay,
but
cool,
yeah,
cool.
I try not to pay too much attention to him in the moment because it just pisses me off.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a hot mess.
You know, I'll never forget, like, so the day he got voted in, I just, instead of getting angry, I just got busy. I got to work. I started volunteering. I did a huge project with the Single Parent Resource Center here. I needed to shift my focus and do something creative and good and, you know, create change for the world too. So I see that. I hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
oh, hi, Jen.
I cried the day I woke up the next day and I was like, what's happening to the world?
I know.
Like legitimately, like off and on all day. I was like, I cried. I like ate a burger. I was trying to eat my feelings.
Totally.
I had to have like a conversation with one of my friends, and it was interesting because he was driving from work and he was talking to me in his car and he was like, oh, he's like, there's a protest going on. He's like, I'm locked in traffic, and he wasn't like mad or anything. He was just like, he rolled down the window so that I could hear them like, you know, cheering and chanting and everything. And I was like, resist.
Wow. Yes.
Resistance. So
wow.
That kind of uplifted my mood a little bit that night because it was a rough day. I am not going to lie. It was a rough day over here.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I felt it in Canada here, right? And we had such a contrast with like Justin Trudeau and we don't need to get into all of that, but okay, so let's get into your book. Tell us about, so when did your book idea come to fruition? What did that look like? What has your process been like?
Wow, when did it come to fruition? I don't remember.
Okay.
I have these writing projects. I have these books that I write that like end up being these like years long projects because I'll start them and then I'll scrap them and rewrite them like over and over again. So this one, it's probably been like 4 or 5 years. And it actually started from a short story. I had like a writing group. We used to do NaNoWriMo together, so National Novel Writing Month. And this was after NaNoWriMo.
Okay.
We were in like, we had like a group chat and someone posted like a writing prompt. And so I started writing this kind of, it really wasn't a short story. Like I don't know how to write a short story. I can't write one to save my life, but it was a scene. It was like the end scene of something else.
Right.
So I wrote it up, and then that just, it kind of expanded into something bigger, where I was like, okay, but what is her story? How did she end up here? So like in the short, oh wait, I don't want to ruin it. Okay, I can't tell you what the short story was because it'll ruin the end of the novel.
Okay, cool. No spoiler alerts.
Yeah, but the novel, it evolved, and it's actually going to be 3 novels.
Okay, cool.
But I want them to be written in a way where, kind of like Octavia Butler, if you're familiar with her, where like they can stand alone, like they go together, but they can stand alone as well.
Yes, for sure.
So I have that. The first one and the second one are definitely going to be a little bit more prepared, but there's like 20-year gap in between. So basically, the story is, I've always had trouble finding like a concise way to explain it. So in my story, there are humans, and then there are like another species of human that we call quads.
Okay.
And in this world, which is our world, so like it's set in Chicago originally I think I was trying to do like 2016, because 2016 was an election year, but now it's 2018.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bump that up to 2020.
Okay, cool.
So it'll be set in 2020. And so there's like quads and humans, and there's a lot of like problems between them. So they're trying to coexist in society, and there is a lot of like humans saying that quads need to be like rounded up, and quads being like, we just want to live, just let us live, because quads are sort of like humans 2.0.
Right.
Okay, so they're like
cool.
humans upgraded.
Yeah.
So for some humans are like, I'm fine, I don't really care, and some humans are like afraid of them. And so it's caused a lot of problems in the dynamic, and a lot of laws that are starting to crop up to really oppress the quads. And the quads are like, look, we just want freedom. We want to just go to our jobs and, live our lives the way the rest of you are. Like, we're not here trying to take over or anything.
Right. Very cool.
And so my main character is Quad, and she's trying to keep the peace, basically. Okay. So she's trying to keep the peace between the humans and quads, and trying to come to a resolution where we can be, where we have laws protecting everybody. And then the antagonist is actually another quad who runs another sort of camp or group that is actually about quad domination. So if you think about X-Men, it's a little bit like that, where like she's like she's like Professor X and he's Magneto, where he like wants domination. And then of course there's like issues with the humans as well. So it's really, I was trying to create a dynamic that could talk about the race issues in America in a different context.
Yes.
And so there's like issues with police killing quads, and most quads are people of color as well. So there is really like laying into that dynamic in our society. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, it's been fun putting it together and like changing. I'm also doing like a slightly different story. Well, not slightly different, but a different story structure than I've done before. So I'm playing with it. I'm letting it like become what it's going to become.
That's so fantastic. And I think that's such a great way to, showcase to other writers that you can play with it. You can move your timeline. If, it's something you started, you don't have to give up. You can always just kind of adjust, right? Along the way. I just want to say hi to Charlene. Hi, Charlene. Post any.
Hi, Nicole. Hi, Michelle.
Okay, see, I can't see anyone on your end, so that's really cool. I only see one person here. Interesting. But yeah, please post your questions for Kristen or myself at any time. Make comments. We'd love to read them out, and share and like this so that we can get some exposure. And without giving away too much of your story, Kristen, the spoiler alert action, let's dive more into the process that you use. So how you started this book a few years ago, how are you staying in the momentum? And what's your timeline now for getting this baby out?
Well, to be honest, it has been a lot of like up and down momentum, and that has to do with my business.
Mm-hmm.
And at times where I was like, I really want to build my business, so I'm going to put this on hold.
Right.
And now I've made shifts in my business where I'm like, I'm not putting my creativity on hold anymore.
Nice.
My creativity is essential to my business,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I make videos and do different things. So I am committing this year to writing it. I want to get it ready for publication. I don't think I will publish it this year, but so in terms of writing for me, I actually had a lot of trouble when I first started writing it, like really started diving into writing it as a novel, because I was writing different short stories. So really writing it as a novel was probably about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was using Word, Microsoft Word, and I was really having trouble keeping things straight because the story is not, it's linear, but it's linear from one character and then it jumps back and then it's linear from another character.
Okay, cool.
So trying to keep track of what's happening when with the different characters, I couldn't even get the writing done. I couldn't even get it planned and organized.
Mm-hmm.
So I switched to using Scrivener, which has been a lifesaver.
Sorry, what's it called?
Scrivener.
Scrivener.
Yeah, it's
I haven't actually heard of that.
I will type it in. I mean, not like the link, but I'll type the actual like name
into the comments.
It's it's a really cool writing software that you can use for writing novels. So writing fiction, for writing, I think, nonfiction as well, and writing, I mean, you can use it for writing anything, but fiction, nonfiction, and screenwriting, they actually have like the formats already in there.
Okay,
so
cool.
The format of
boom, added so much value to this. So I hope if anybody else has tried this or uses, comment, let us know.
So I love Scrivener because it allows you to like see things in almost like on a cork board,
mm-hmm.
and then you can move things around, like you can move scenes around, you can break it up into chapters, and it helps you see it really like bird's eye and
very cool.
Organized.
Yeah.
So that really kind of changed things for me. And once I switched that, I was able to start putting my notes in and things like that. Now, the way that I work is I plan out, like I outline like insane amounts before I do any actual. Well, I'll do a little bit of writing here and there, like if I'm inspired and I'm like in a scene, but like before I actually sit down to really write, I outline like crazy. And a lot of that I start actually by hand, which is interesting because right now I'm going back and revising my outline, and I'm struggling a little bit because I don't have a notebook because I am kind of a digital nomad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't have anything to write this down with, and all I want is a pen in my hand.
Right.
So that's what I do is I write down a lot of my ideas, I scribble a lot of different things, and then I start writing my outline. And when my outline starts getting like too much for me to like write by hand,
mm-hmm.
like it's getting more fleshed out, or my brain can't keep up with my hand, and then I'll start typing the outline up onto the computer, and then moving things around and getting more organized with it. So cool. Once I do that, then I usually start from the beginning and write. I feel like that's how I used to do it a lot, and now sometimes I'm doing a more jumping around in my like now than I did 10 years ago when I was writing. I'm doing more jumping around. So
do you find like mapping out a timeline, like kind of that corkboard idea, but maybe just up on a wall, do you find that helps?
Timeline, you mean for me, or timeline for the story?
For the story.
I do that in Scrivener.
Yeah. Okay.
So because in Scrivener there have like it'll have there's a screen where it has like an actual like corkboard print in the background,
mm-hmm.
and like these index cards.
Okay, cool.
And so each scene, like each thing that you have broken up like in your outline is mm-hmm. in index cards on there. And so I'll put like Saturday, Sunday, so that I can keep track of like what the timing is in the story.
I love
and,
it.
Like how much time passed. So I will do that because otherwise I will get, I normally don't do that at first, and then I go back and I'm like, oh my God, what day are we on? What is happening right now? Yeah. Where are we in this timeline? And so I always end up having to go back and put the actual like times in for the occurrences in the story.
Yeah. And I find like, just like every author is so unique, every writer is so unique, every story is so unique, the process for everyone is so unique. And that's what I'm fascinated with. So the last person I talked to, Melissa, on here, she actually got it off the computer and onto a wall to help it make sense mm-hmm. to her. So that actual like, changing mediums. So Yeah, I think that's beautiful. That's brilliant. And I can't wait to check out this Skiver?
Scrivener.
Scrivener. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'm a very visual person. I have to see the spelling of something before I can actually say it.
Oh yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, I typed it in so people can go and look it up. It's I think it was made by a UK. I think it's a UK company.
Okay.
It's not an American company, but I think it's a UK company.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so like once I start writing and getting into the writing of it, usually somewhere in that process I end up having to like start over.
Okay, yeah.
Just like, I mean, I'm trying to eliminate that. That's why I outline so much, but usually somewhere in the process I realize something that I'm like, oh, this is not working, and it's some fundamental element to the story that like now I have to change the whole thing.
Right.
So then I go back to the drawing board and I start again.
And that's so cool because you know what? Writers write and they rewrite and rewrite. I say that all the time. So yeah, you kind of have to do that. And thank you for stepping up as a leader and like really committing to bringing this into your work and the whole creative process, because that is such a leadership thing that you're talking to creatives and you're doing it yourself. And so that's kind of like with me. I was always talking to writers about building their social media following, yet I kept my social media so locked down, right? So now I've had to really like bust through those fears and just get on here and start doing it, even if it's messy. It's just we're doing it. We're walking the walk, right? And writing myself too. Speaking of short stories, I wrote a short story, and then my mentor actually said to me, this is the first chapter to your book. And I was like, what? So I have to keep going, right? So yeah, I've been doing a ton of writing. I am understanding the struggles like you wouldn't believe these days, the blocks. So I think it's so great that we can support each other through all this too and build a community around writers here. So
yeah,
thanks.
for sure.
Yeah. So if there was anything you wanted to tell, so if somebody out there who's watching today has a burning desire to share their story, now you've taken some personal stuff and you're turning it into a fiction to bring light to some issues that are happening in our world today. And I think that's a wonderful idea. But when it comes to our own personal stories, if there's someone watching here today that has a burning desire to share their story with the world, what would you tell them?
So I would tell them, a lot of times people, they have that burning desire and then they don't act, and then they don't act and they don't act, and they sit and they just sit with this burning desire and they think about all the things they want to write, and but who wants to hear my story and who am I to blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. If you are not writing, that's your own bullshit that's coming up. Okay. So like your own, like the ideas, the beliefs, all those thoughts, like all those things that are coming up and giving you doubts. One, that's normal. Okay. Everybody gets that. Okay. And two, to clear the way for you to really step into actually doing your writing, you got to get out of all the other excuses that are covering up all the real deep down reasons why you're not writing. I don't have time. I have to do the laundry. Oh, but blah, blah, blah. But I have this job, et cetera, et cetera. All that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, it's crap.
I've had all
Everybody who says they don't have time is full of shit. Okay.
Yeah.
You have time. You need to prioritize it.
Yes.
You can figure out where am I wasting time? If you can binge watch Stranger Things on Netflix, you can sit down and write.
Totally.
Okay?
I know.
Believe me. And I know because that was me. I'm like, I don't have time, but I'm sitting here watching 17 episodes of Vampire Diaries. Like,
yeah,
I have time.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're coming up with all those other excuses, that's the time to be like, okay, what's really going on for me here? Like, what am I really afraid of? And then start diving into those things, because the like perfectionism, which is really fear, the fears, the doubts, all of those things, they go into fear. There's other things that may come up, like feelings of unworthiness and things like that. All that stuff is rooted in something else really deep down. For sure. Something that you haven't discovered yet. Yeah. And this is what I used to do when I worked with writers, is really help them dive down into what is the root. Yes. And that root is like, you know, the oppressive beliefs and conditionings that I was talking about, that I help creatives of color to navigate and dismantle, is what's that root thing that is holding you back. So for example, when I was working with writers, there was someone who she like wanted, she had a story that she wanted to write and she wasn't really pursuing it. And she's like, I don't really have support. And I was like, okay, well, what's really keeping you from doing it? And like kind of helped her navigate through. And she was like, when I was a kid, I was constantly told that I like wasn't worth anything. And I'm like, that's your problem, is you think your story isn't worth anything because your story is your story. Like, I think it was her story. And it's like, you think that your experience isn't worth anything, and you constantly be told that you're unworthy.
Yeah.
Coming from that place, it's hard to, one, sit down and write, and then two, to put your work out there.
Yeah.
But like, had she not actually, you know, she would have just been like, well, I don't have time, or, well, my husband doesn't support me, or, well, maybe this story is stupid, instead of like, oh, I actually have a really big problem with worth that I need to actually work on and heal from and clear so that I can actually open up and move into my writing. And so all those thoughts that you're having, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to stop, but when you actually understand where they come from and the root, then you can be like, wait, I know this isn't true. I am worthy. Hold on. This is not true. This is a root story, but it's just a story. Yeah. And you can start to change that pattern, and start creating a shift in your creative work.
Yeah, definitely.
In your writing and opening it up.
Definitely. Even for me, like watching these Facebook Lives all the time, I was like, okay, I need to shut this down, have no distractions, and just focus on my writing. It's, you know, those distractions come up, and then, yeah, really getting to the root of it. And so for me, just what's been coming up lately is to not compare yourself to other writers and compare yourself to what other people are doing, right? Everybody has to start somewhere. And if we're starting to compare ourselves to people who are on like further down on their journey than we are, you got to shut that down, right? It's not about what other writers are doing. It's not about what anyone else is doing, really. At the end of the day, if you have that desire to get your story out, create the space, create the conditions to support that. I think it's wonderful. I love what you're doing in the world.
Comparison syndrome is dangerous.
Yes.
Comparison syndrome is dangerous.
Yes.
And that's one of those things also where you get to pause and be like, well, why am I comparing? This person's further, you know that logically in your mind. This person's further down in their path. They've been doing this longer, et cetera, et cetera. So why am I comparing myself to them? Yeah. Like, what is it about me that's going on that I'm comparing myself? Is it that you don't trust yourself? Is it that you don't trust your process? Is it that you're afraid you're going to back out? Like, looking at those things, you can even get to the root of like where your comparison is coming from and start to eliminate that. Like me, like I don't really compare myself anymore to other writers or other entrepreneurs or things like that. And I had a shift, you know, like people talk about competition. Like, I don't believe in competition. Okay, I just don't believe in competition. Like, yeah, nobody does what I do the way I do it. Nobody's going to write the story that I would write the way I would write it. Exactly. So what somebody else is doing, like their book or their business or their whatever, that has nothing to do with me. It's not competition. It's just we're all unique. Yes. And so you have to really start learning to honor your unique gifts, your unique voice, to really get out of the comparison and really just get rooted in you. Totally. And that can be tricky for people who have been living in a story of who they are, or who they're allowed to be, or who they're told, like how they're told they're allowed to show up. To break out of that and really stand in who you are is what helps to break open your voice and to really bring your authentic voice and your authentic experience to the page. So true. So true. So true in so many ways. I remember when my son was really little, someone gave me permission to let the house go for a day or two and not have to be perfect and have it clean all the time and just to be present with him. And I was like, oh, I can do that. I realized the value in having permission. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm not a bad mom if it's a mess. Yeah, and just having the permission and having that reflection, right? And that's why coaching works so well for me, because coaching and mentorship, because it is like somebody reflecting back to me what I'm not seeing. And then there's that permission piece, and then all of a sudden I'm like going for it like you wouldn't believe. So yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, really cool stuff. So thanks for sharing about your book and your process. I know we oh geez,
Oh, I think it was over a message between you and I. You said you dance, you do. Tell us more about what you do to get the creative channels flowing.
Oh yeah, so there's a couple of things. One of the things I really like doing, which I don't necessarily do that often, I am actually starting to change things with this now, is I like to do yoga.
Yes.
Like yoga in general just helps to unlock my creativity because I get in my body, I get out of my head, and I get into feeling. And I mean, when you're in your head, you're up here and you're like cutting yourself off from everything else below. Okay, now your brain is connected to everything through your nervous system. Okay, so when you're up here and you're cut off from everything else, you're cut off from a lot of your wisdom. And so when I get on my mat, I get integrated and I get connected, and that just opens up so many more pathways for my creativity. So I do like to do yoga before writing if it's feasible. Sometimes it's not. The way I've set up my schedule lately has been Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays are writing days, and I start with either yoga or like doing physical therapy. That's the first thing I do in my day in general now, and so that's like right before, that would happen right before writing. So I do like doing yoga. But in terms of like my writing ritual, if I haven't done so already, I change my clothes, I get out of my pajamas, put on some clothes,
Nice.
and then I make some tea, and then I read for probably at least 10 minutes or so, like anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, just to get me out of my head and into the written word. And then I set down whatever fiction I'm reading and I start working on my novel.
Yeah.
And then when I close that up, sometimes I will do like, you know, a yoga pose, like do pigeon on each side, or I like to do dance parties. Just in general, I like to break things up with like a solo dance party.
Love it.
Especially if I'm switching from one thing like writing to business, that's a big mental switch.
Yes.
You know, so like a 5-minute dance party helps to get you out of your head, get you in your body, and close out what you were doing so that you can step into the next thing.
That's so wonderful.
I mean, you can do other things too, but I like the dance party.
Yeah, whatever works for you. I've been doing goddess pose a lot in between things. Just really getting into goddess pose and holding it as long as I can. I just think it's just such a fun pose. So, and then yesterday, actually, I went to a community acupuncture. So you're in a room with people all on recliners and blankets, and you know, you get your needles in you, but there's some people snoring, but I actually sat there with a big, like my eyes were closed the whole time with a big smile on my face. So she actually said, "You look really happy." And I'm like, I'm just getting so much from doing it in a community space. So sometimes, yeah, for me, just even getting into a coffee shop with a friend where we're not talking, but we're just both plugging away, I get so inspired from that too. So yeah, there's just so many ways you can go about it. And I just love unpacking these. So thanks.
It's really fun actually writing with a friend, even if they're like even if you're not talking, like you said. When I was last summer, early fall, I was in Oregon with my biz bestie. I was staying with my biz bestie, who is also a writer and an editor, and we would like go to cafes and be like, let's sit down and do some writing.
Yeah.
Let's get some things done. And it's just like, because you're around another person who's got that same get it done energy and that same like get it done attitude. And so you guys just sitting there, it helps you stay in that moment also, instead of like, let me get distracted and do all these things. It's like, wait, we're focused right now.
Exactly. I love it. And then,
I also turn my phone on airplane mode.
Oh, that's a really
That's another
good tip.
thing.
I heard
So
that
here's
one the
the
other
thing.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, turn my phone on airplane mode. And a lot of times when I'm writing, and this is a really good one for you guys who want to write or are writing, and when you get stuck on the page or you're struggling through something, or you get distracted easily, is to work in Pomodoros. Do you know what Pomodoros are?
No.
Okay.
Tell me.
So you guys, you can look up Pomodoros, but
I will.
It's basically, I do like a Pomodoro round. So like on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Fridays and Saturdays, I usually work for like at least an hour and a half. And so I'll set my timer for 25 minutes. My phone's on airplane mode, and I work for that 25 minutes. You're not like sprinting. You're just focused. It's focused attention for 25 minutes. And the good thing about this is when you do this, when you get distracted, you're like, I just have to be here for the next however many minutes. You know, like when you start feeling like discouraged or anything like that, instead of like, well, I've got 3 hours and I'm blocked. It's like, look, I just need to focus. I just need to focus for the next 20 minutes, for the next 15 minutes, for the next however many minutes you have left. And so it helps you to stay in the moment.
Okay.
And 25 minutes is like long enough to be focused, but not so long. Like once you get to 25 minutes, you start to wane. Like your brain needs a break. And so I'll do 25 minutes, set my timer for a 5-minute break, might do like a stretch or eat a cookie or something, you know, something that's just a little break. Phone is still on airplane mode.
Yeah.
And then I set it for another 25 minutes and I work in another Pomodoro. And then I take a 5-minute break and then I do another 25 minutes. And then after that, you can do like a half-hour break if you're going to continue from there. So it's a great way to get more kind of concentrated time and focused time and actually get more writing done very often in less time than you would if you're like, okay, I'm just going to give my whole day to writing, because you're focused for that period of time. And then you can take a break if you're doing it through the day, then like start another 3 rounds of Pomodoros.
Pomodoros, that's so funny. I set timers
yeah.
all the time because I have to. But I had no idea they were called that. So thank you. You brought so much value to this conversation today. Yeah, and I just started seeing people's comments here. So thanks for typing that in.
Yeah.
Is there any questions
The Pomodoros
on
and some of these things are things like I had created a course like a year and a half ago or so that was about like how to schedule your writing time and schedule your time so that you can actually get your writing done and set like goals and things like that. So it breaks it all down, but Pomodoros is part of that.
Yeah.
I don't think I mentioned Scrivener as part of that actually. Okay. My light is just
so all right, I'm seeing
dying.
comments from my people. I just want to read this. Dominique wrote, "This is so inspiring hearing about how you guys get into a creative spirit and get motivated to share your authentic." And then it just kind of stops there. So
authentic selves to the world. I love the idea of yoga poses or dance parties. I can't say the rest, but
okay, cool.
But I'm guessing when you need a break or when you want to get in the vibe. I will look it up on my iPad.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I said. Just as there are so many writers, there's so many different methods. Like NaNoWriMo is one that I know a lot of people use. I've never used it myself. I've always typically been on the coaching side of things. So when I worked in the publishing company, I coached authors through the process and then got them in through the publishing process as well. So, you know, kind of finding myself as a writer in the last couple of years, I'm now starting to relate even deeper to some of these struggles, right? Because I'm struggling myself. So just showing up and talking about it and sharing these ideas, I can't thank you enough. This is amazing.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. I wonder if you guys have questions, if you guys are watching, anyone who's watching, and actually, even if you're watching on the replay, go ahead and put your questions in there, because you know it's not like I'm not going to get notifications. So you know, come on with your questions, questions and comments, and let us know.
Has so much knowledge and she is so creative, and I'm just so thrilled. So yeah, put your comments in, and then also Kristen, drop your website, your YouTube, everything. There was something you wanted to give away as sort of a giveaway to people watching here today. Yeah. So talk about that.
Yeah, so what I have is it's a free video and workbook guide, and it's really about like I talked about the oppressive beliefs and conditionings, or like what are the thoughts in your head that are blocking you. What this video and workbook guide is, it takes you through actually uncovering what those thoughts are and deeper where they come from. Like, what are some of the experiences that have reinforced these ideas? What are the experiences that I've taught you that these things are true, even if you know that they're not true? Because that'll give you an idea of like what you need to clear or heal or shift out of the way to open your pathway to what, you know, if it's in your writing, or if it's in another creative endeavor, or if it's in some other area of your life. And that's the great thing about it, is like you can keep going back and redoing the workbook for like different projects or different things that are coming up for you.
Beautiful. I'm so downloading that for myself.
Yeah, and it'll help you also look at, I like to, like when I work with clients, I I talk about 4 key areas of influence, and going from like the macro to the micro, which would be like society, like the greater society that you're in, different cultures that you might intersect with, and then past relationships of any kind, and family and upbringing. So like your actual tight knit, you know, household, like where, you know, how you grew up. And we get influences from all of these places, all of these levels that start to kind of shape our idea of ourself, of what's possible, of what we can do. And a lot of those influences we need to start dismantling and unraveling from, so that we can really step into who we truly are, and what we really want to create, or the stories that we want to create, or, you know, the life that you want to create. And so that also you get to explore a little bit in the video and workbook guide. I'll actually let me see if I can type the link in here.
Yeah.
But you can go to kristeniris.com/unblock.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and that is, hold on one second. I'm messing up my typing.
Oh, it's okay. It's definitely I did a psychology class last year in child development, and we actually went through that process of all the different circles of influence. So that is something really cool that you've just added as well. So thank you for that too. Any other questions or comments you're seeing on your side?
Let me see. Not at the moment. I just had something in my head that I had wanted to bring up, and you know what? I'll give you, I remember now, if it's okay, if it's okay for me to share this. So, and I'm working on a YouTube video about this, is, to give you an example of like some of the beliefs, and specifically that really like disrupt your creative flow. For example, for me, all of my writing for a really long time was very white centric. Now, as you can tell, I'm not white, but like all of my writing, it was always white characters with white lives and white problems.
Interesting.
And white faces, because I write fantasy and science fiction, and growing up as a kid, that's all I saw in fantasy and science fiction. You don't see brown characters, you don't see black characters, you don't see brown and black main characters. And so for me, that was all I saw. And a couple of things that taught me as a kid, as someone growing up, and as a young woman growing up as a writer, was, one, it made me feel like I was unseen in the world, and like there was no desire for the world to see me, which is why, one of the reasons why I was writing white centric characters. And the second thing is that it made me feel like, and I didn't realize this until my 20s, guys. I didn't realize that this is the influence it had. This was not conscious. Is that I felt like I had to write white characters because that was what was allowed. Like that if I wrote a character that was brown, who was in a fantasy or a high fantasy, that people would be like, oh, this isn't realistic, which is fucking stupid, because I'm talking about a fantasy novel. Okay.
Exactly.
It's a fantasy novel. It's not real. You know, but like that was the idea in my head. It was like, well, they have to be white because that's what's realistic, or that's what people will see as realistic, or that's what people will read. People won't read other characters. So it was when I was in my mid-ish 20s, maybe like more earlier 20s, when I read Octavia Butler, who was writing brown characters, like writing, like that was the first time that I read a fantasy story, or like fantasy kind of science fiction story, where like I was like, this character looks like me. Like if I was younger, I could play this character in the movie adaptation. Like I was so excited about it.
Oh,
but
amazing.
It blew open the possibilities for what I could do with my writing, because I was like, wow, I've been writing white characters my whole life because I didn't think that other things could be, like, I didn't think other things were allowed to be written. I didn't think that people would want to read them, or that's the story that subconsciously I had in my head, was that these stories, these kinds of stories, fantasy and science fiction stories, are not for brown characters, you know, and it really stunted the possibilities of what I could put on the page. And when I broke out of that and started writing other characters and writing characters of color, like my message, even like what I could really come across, and the messages that I could send, and the ways that I could challenge oppressive power dynamics and systems within the story, and within our society, by doing it within my story, all of that really like opened wide up for me. So this is why it's so important to really start navigating what are your underlying stories? Like, what are the stories from society that you've been told that are limiting your idea of what you can put on the page, your idea of what you can do in your life, your idea of how you can parent, how you can be a girlfriend, how you can be a sister, like all of these things.
Yeah.
When you navigate that and you start to break it open, you start to see like all these places like, wow, this really showed up in other areas of my life too.
Yeah.
Like that's certainly not the only, my writing is certainly not the only place that showed up.
Right.
It showed up, it created patterns that led into my relationships. It created patterns that had to do with me being a perfectionist and being like a very high achiever, overachiever type person.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start to explore it in your creative zone,
mm-hmm.
and really start navigating into that, it not only opens it up in your creativity and in what you're what you're writing, what you're bringing into the world, but it also lets you see where else you've been locked up in your life and where else you've been really living into these old patterns because you just weren't even conscious of them.
Yeah, for sure. I'm like so feeling you. I'm like tearing up because it showed up for me through a Catholic grandmother who passed on Catholic body shame and guilt and sex is dirty and sinful and all of that. And it was in my early 20s that I discovered that that wasn't the only way of thinking, and it just opened my world too. So thank you for sharing that. It's so true. Like there's so many, and Disney movies, hello. Like I know they affected me because it was like, I kept thinking this hero would show up and save me and that I needed to be saved. And then it wasn't until I was watching The Bachelor like a few weeks ago where someone mentioned that there was never any black princesses. And I was like, oh, that's right, there wasn't. And so like, how did that affect you?
Oh yeah. I mean, all of that, like no black princess. I mean, and let's not even get into princess syndrome because Lord,
right?
and the damage that causes us as women and girls and men too. Like that's terrible. But like no black or brown princesses. Well, I mean, I guess Jasmine was brown.
Yes.
But like no black princesses. Beauty magazines.
Yes.
Everybody's white. Like when I was growing up. I'm dating myself.
Yeah, me too.
when I was growing up, everybody was white. Everybody was white with like long silky hair. And I was like, well, my hair is not like that. That's why I got a relaxer when I was a kid, because I wanted to have a long white girl hair because maybe then I might be considered beautiful or things like that. So it showed up like that in movies and TV shows. Like if it wasn't like the Cosby Show or a black centered show, you don't really have like, when I was growing up, you didn't really have a lot of like black characters, or they were kind of stereotyped or this archetype of what blackness was supposed to be.
Right.
And so all of these things, I mean, they did affect me. They affected my writing, but they affected me in my life and making me feel like, oh, I can't ever be beautiful because I'm black. The world doesn't want to see me. I'm invisible to people. All of those things. And those ideas show up in my relationships. I mean, they showed up in how I navigated relationships, how I tolerated crap in relationships. It showed up in just like other endeavors and things that I was pursuing, and like this incessant need to really prove myself, because if I prove myself and if I can show how excellent I actually am, because I am, if I can prove that, then nobody can say that I'm not good enough, or that I didn't do it, or that I didn't achieve, or that I can't hit that level because I just proved it to them. So like, I mean, all of these things, and that's just one thing.
Yeah.
Not seeing myself in movies, not seeing myself in princess movies or cartoon or anything, in books. Like here's an idea of all the different places that it showed up. Can't be sexy. Oh no, I can't be sexy either. I'm not sexy because I'm brown.
That is so not true. I'm like so attracted to brown people. So thank you for sharing all that. It's just like,
yeah, it took time to navigate out of that and like to like unravel those stories and unravel from those patterns and really start changing them in my life. But like this is why I do what I do in mentoring creatives, is like we need to get to these underlying stories that you don't realize are still affecting you, and then clear out.
Yes.
And create some new patterns that are actually going to allow you to flourish.
Yes.
In your creative process and like in who you are, to really feel like, yes, I feel awesome. I feel good in who I am. I feel awesome about who I am. Yeah. And like really be in like self-acceptance and self-love, and then operate from that place. It's powerful.
This is so powerful. This whole conversation has just been so powerful, and the ripple effect that we're going to create in the world, like it gives me chills. It's just like, yeah, let's just keep this conversation going. And
yeah,
so yeah, thank you. Even my own creativity was stifled in so many ways. So I appreciate this so much, and I'm sure all of our viewers are going to appreciate this. So people, please like and share this to all your friends. This conversation is so important, and it's going to be so helpful to so many people. I can feel it. I know there's people out there that are going to end up watching this and just be like, hell yeah, I got this.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm going to flip the light on. Oh.
Yeah.
See, we can actually. There we go. That's a little better.
Oops. Any questions going on in here? Any questions for Kristen before we jump off here? Anyone?
I don't see any at the moment. But again, if you're watching on the replay, feel free to pop them in.
Yeah. Hi, Heather.
Come back and answer for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel complete here. Do you?
Yeah, feel pretty good. Yeah. Feel pretty good. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to share. Okay. Sorry, like the radiator behind me is hissing. The time here. If there's anything else that I wanted to share. No, just like you guys just recognize that you are uniquely you. Nobody has your voice. Nobody has your experience. It doesn't matter if you're writing fiction or nonfiction. Like, my experience, my life, my passions, they fuel my fiction. You know, it's like nobody has your experience, nobody has your voice, and you need to bring that into the world. Mm-hmm. Like, the more of us who bring our stories and our voices into the world, the more like the world expands and changes. For sure. So understand the power of that, and then, like, really give yourself permission to step into the power of that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. And please share your story, because yeah, it's going to change. We need to make this shift. We need to get certain people out of power and come together as a community and rewrite history. Like, what do we want? What legacy do we want to leave for our kids and their kids?
So, yes. Yeah. Legacy is an excellent word. That's actually one of the words I've been playing with right now, especially in building my business, is like what, and like where I want it to go and what I'm seeing in like 10 years and in 20 years. I haven't really visualized 20 years, I'm not going to lie, but in 10 years, I visualized 10 years. And then like when I'm on my deathbed and I'm like, yes, I've left this legacy for my grandchildren. Yeah. It's like, you know, what is it that I'm building? Yeah. But legacy, especially right now, I think this year for me, legacy is like so important, because I'm right now building the foundations of that legacy and what I'm creating, you know, 10, 20, 50 years from now. Yes. So
I'm legacy so all about word. Foundation right now. I love the word foundation, and I really do feel like I'm laying the foundation here, and a good one too. And then also I have a little observer who watches me, and he actually has visions for me now. So my son actually said, Mom, I can see the Raeda building. It's going to be really tall and really big. He's like, and there's going to be all kinds of writers in it, and you're going to be teaching creative. And then he's like, no, you're not teaching. You're leading the whole building. You hire teachers. And I'm like, yeah, I love your vision.
All right.
So that helps.
I like that.
Yeah, asking people what their vision is so valuable, I've realized. What do you see my vision? What I'm creating, what do you see in the future for that? It's such a great question to ask people.
Interesting. Yeah. I've never really thought about that before. I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see? What do you think I'm gonna be creating?
What's
the legacy you think I'm gonna leave? I think that's interesting. I don't want to get too caught up in it though.
I know.
What people visualize might be like too small for what I'm creating. Like, I'm creating really big stuff.
Totally.
And I don't want to get in my head like That's the thing. If you guys are doing this, don't get in your head about other people's vision of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just do it as like a fun exercise.
A fun
not
exercise.
As like, oh, this person doesn't believe that I can make great things happen. It's not what that means.
Yeah,
that's not what that means.
Knowing when to cut it, right? And that's what I always say to my clients: take what you like and leave the rest, right?
Yes.
Like if there's some value here, great. If it's totally not resonating with you, then leave it. And that is my favorite.
Let what inspires you inspire you.
Yeah, exactly. And be aware of that. Be like, oh, that's just their opinion, and I'm not going to take that one today, you know? So yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. Let's do this again. I want to check in on you in a few months and see how the project's rolling out, and you know, everyone else can check in on you on your website here. And please share on my page anytime. Like if you have just a really cool idea, you want to come share it on my page, I would love that. Let's co-collaborate here.
Oh, thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much.
All right.
Have a
Thank
wonderful
you guys.
night.
Thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Chat soon.